The subject of this talk is the civil services examination in its present design and its relevance. Now, in dealing with this topic or in talking about this subject, I want the facts to speak for themselves, and I want you to join me in examining the design of this examination and see what conclusions we can draw together, because I really don't want to come out with some views of mine without examining the examination design as it is. Now, I went through the last 5 years question papers of the civil services examination preliminary, and these are some of the observations that I have. Now, when I went through 500 questions of these last 5 years, 100 each paper, what I found is something like this, which I share with you. I'm not going into the absolute details, but believe me, I've gone through this whole thing. I divide that question paper into two very clear parts. One, and it's very clear, it's very simple too. You too can have a look at it at some time. The ones that can be learned by rote, memorizing, that kind of thing. Now, please remember that memorizing and learning something by rote is perhaps the lowest form of mental exertion. Be that as it may. Now, what I found was, over these 500 questions of 5 years, that as high as 92% of the questions are those that require only rote learning. Now, you know what it is, that you ask a question, a little question, small question. In geography, you ask a question. In history, you ask a question in some kind of on birds or something. A little bit of ornithology or something on Neelakurunchi, and this and that all the time, and add to that a little bit of these what are called current events. All this add up to a little bit of trivia, because there is no design in all this except one clear, discernible fact, and these are all amenable to memorizing or rote learning. There is nothing in it, in this 92%, which involves your application of mind or reasoning. Nothing of that sort. So that is one observation. There are different things that come in, all adding up to some kind of trivia. Now, with 48% or thereabouts cutoff, you can memorize about 52% of this thing, all this what is called a syllabus, and get your cutoff. You can be through, you can succeed in the examination. This is clear. I did my calculation and this is how it is. Now, this being the state, that predominantly the examination, which I am talking about, the GS1, General Studies Paper 1, of the preliminary examination. This being what it is an indirect invitation to all these coaching centers to come and do their bit. That is, they can make out notes on the subject. Please remember, with the AI agent and chat GPT and all that, take a chapter and make a question. That's about 10 or 15 minutes for that kind of AI. And even if you are having a battery of people working on this, it is all pretty good pretty easy for the coaching centers to come out with their notes covering the entire thing. And I have looked at all these, it has required a little bit of labor. I have looked at representative notes of these coaching centers, the prominent ones. And what I find is that there is a 72% overlap between the notes that they have, that is the coaching centers, and the questions in the question paper of the examination. A 72% overlap. That reduces itself to a simple arithmetic. That is, if you get all these notes there and you have about 2 years of memorizing time, terrible really, as I told you, the lowest of low forms of mental exertion. But if you shut yourself up in a room and go about memorizing and learning all these things by rote, and if you get 70% of that kind of stuff, the notes which the coaching centers have been sending out and thriving on that later, if you get 70% of those notes right, you are through the cutoff. You get the cutoff. This is the design as it is. Now, it is clear to me, and it should be clear to anybody else, that the coaching centers, which are rightly called a coaching industry, you know the automobile industry, that kind of thing, assembly line and things like that. So this is a coaching industry, called an industry because it has a kind of turnover, if you can call it again that, of about anything between 15,000 crores to 20,000 crores. So this kind of coaching industry is the insidious additional wheel that operates along with the examination process. That is clear from the fact, one, that the coaching industry has thrived over the years, reaching something like, as I said, 15,000 crores business. Now that could not have happened without these unsuspecting or not so innocent really candidates or applicants for this examination signing on to these coaching centers. So that is clear from the fact that they are growing so well. And although I do not have authoritative figures or statistics, I have seen various magazines and various projections which say that 68% of those who appeared in these examinations, even taking 2024 as a base, 68% joined coaching institutes. And they are all over the place, Delhi, Kota, Hyderabad, all these things. They joined this institute or got all the stuff online. That's the figure, 68%. Now, the fees for this kind of stuff, this kind of coaching, is pretty stiff. And then add to that, if you are going and staying at one of these places, you have the coaching center tuition fee or whatever it's called, plus the board and lodging, and it comes to roughly about 10 lakhs per year. The average time that these people take is 2 years. That really comes to a lot of money. 10 lakhs being spent by the parents. That's a social cost. Add to the fact that figure that in all this kind of business where people appear and then finally the final list, that is after the mains. I'll talk about a little of the mains a little later, I hope. Only 0.4% succeed, all the rest are eliminated. So that adds up to 99.6% of these people who spend about 10 lakhs money, they don't succeed. They are eliminated like a procrustic bed. They are just eliminated. That's what happens. Now, that has a social cost because you take away 10 lakhs per person, and if it is 2 years, and 2 years is now just about what it is, maybe even 3 years or 4 years. I know people who have been working on this for 4 years. So you have something like, I again made some calculation, the number of people who have signed in for these coaching centers. I mean, that 68% figure, and I come to something like that society pays about 3,000 crores to coaching institutes every year. It's a transfer of wealth. That is a terrible thing. And this 3,000 crores represents those people who appeared and didn't make it. Maybe they will continue, like Robert Bruce, they will continue for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, that kind of thing. So this is what is happening. I want you to think about this thing. Now, even for these, this is about society, the impact of society, what it means really for society, the social cost. Even for those people who spend their time in this kind of thing, 3 years of doing what is really very much rote learning can have some effect on their mental ability. And what could be, if it's not a brain rot, definitely a brain deterioration over 2 to 3 years doing this kind of thing. So that is also a cost, because these people could have spent these 2 years in strengthening their skills to such an extent that AI will not take any of the jobs that they might go into, or any other thing, because there is a huge opportunity cost lost in this thing. That too has to be thought of. It's all getting a little unfortunate when you see this whole thing, There is another aspect to it. Not everyone can afford 10 lakhs on coaching per year, or even for that matter 5 or 6 lakhs per year. Whom are you excluding? The exclusionary aspect of this is something that you have got to have at least a thought of. Those who are excluded are the very people who have a live-in experience of India's life. They have lived through the inequality, the economic inequality that is so clear in our society. And they have lived through that experience. And they have a pretty close idea of what deprivation is. And to my mind, it is these people who really deserve to be in the civil services. Make all this thing a factor of coaching and a byproduct of coaching industry, and you exclude the very people who could bring in some kind of lived experience in tackling our problems. Excuse me. For any examination, you've got to ask yourself a very fundamental question. What is the purpose of the examination? If you're having an examination for commercial vehicle drivers, you know what you're looking for, both in the skills thing and in any kind of knowledge that you might put through if you're putting them through a written examination. The purpose of a civil services examination really, which is an entrance examination to test the aptitude and ability of people to fit into the civil service, their emotional quotient, their emotional intelligence, their lived-in experience, their connection with the problems that an administrator will have to do. That is what has got to be tested. Not this kind of absurdity, which is the hallmark of the test design. And the problems of India are the problems of potable water, protected water, the problems of health, the problems of immunization, the problems of nutrition. All these problems, which are problems that are there and over which there should be ground knowledge. Not a preparation that is can be done in libraries or in some kind of room, a drawing room if you like, where with all kinds of notes and a cup of tea or something, they can go through all these notes and prepare. This is a mockery of the situation as it is. And it is terrible because we really have to tackle these problems more than anything else. Another thing required by these civil service is that for whatever be the merits or demerits, we have various projects under various things under the public sector. The public sector, government owns companies. The government is the predominant owner of many companies, whether it is coal or whether it is shipping or whether it is shipbuilding or whether it is civil aviation. Government is there, and therefore there is another category of people who should be trained in this professional management. That too is part of the system. What I am trying to say is, this is the purpose of the recruitment. This is the aptitude we are looking for, and this kind of academics and this kind of trivia that characterizes the civil services preliminary examination. Things that can be learned by rote learning. It means you don't have to have an understanding, you just have to have memory. This thing is just the opposite of what is required. I must put in a word about the main examination. Remember, like a procrastinated bed, a lot of people have already gone out. Percentages are so so very huge. And then again, about maybe 1,000 and odd, or 3,000 or 4,000, that kind of thing, are the number who are going to write for the main examination. They have a general essay paper to write. My God, if you have a look at that, you will find that that is a paper full of epigrams, philosophical statements and so on, where they would have to expand that idea into some kind of florid prose, something fit for maybe a philosopher or some kind of a fiction writer. Certainly nothing at all to do with what I said, the purpose that should be there for the examination. Now missing. The purpose is clear, and that is we got to solve problems that are very specific to India. And I said earlier, the problems of water, the problems of health, the problems of unequal inequity, the problems of climate, the problems of all these problems that are there, which have to be tackled, not in some generalist way, but in that particular way, which means you have got to have some kind of connection with that kind of problem, that kind of experience. And what I see is that the examination, now I'm talking about the main, the examination is academic. I went through some of the papers. Anthropology, they have got a number of optionals. We can choose anything. That itself is a mockery of things. In anthropology, the question is something about the evolution of bipedalism and erect posture in human beings. Oh God, what has that to do with a civil service administration? Nothing at all. And when it comes to English literature, it's again one of the optional subjects. They pick on the wasteland, and T.S. Eliot's Wasteland is a portrayal of disillusionment. And what has that to do? That's the right question for academics, for anyone who wants to get a PhD in all these subjects. This is really off the mark. That's how I see it. And this is at a terrible price, because you're having 3 years of preparation by 10 lakhs of young people, and all their lives and the productivity is all gone. You're sacrificing the lives of these young people for something that is so, for an examination that is constructed in so irrelevant a way. I would say the mildest word would be anachronism of the worst kind. I do not want to prescribe anything, because that is not my territory. But I do wonder why this kind of examination and this kind of total waste of time and effort at such social cost and such exploitation has been allowed to continue for all these years. That is a basic question. And it seems to me that it is also an indictment of the top administration, of the civil service itself at its topmost level.